All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm here again with another recap for FC Barcelona. I'm like a day late to this one. Actually, I watched it live yesterday, but I wasn't home, didn't have a chance to record this video, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Another ugly game, extremely messy game. Barcelona ends up winning 3-2 after going down 2-0 in the first half. You see goals from Ivan Romero in the 15th minute, which was a nice goal. All fairness, all credit to Levante. They, as most teams in La Liga this season, are going to had a game plan. They stuck to it. It worked, and I can't be mad at them for the way that they played. It was effective. And then this is when things start to get really messy. In the 45th plus 7 minutes of extra time, there was a very controversial penalty given. I will get into that a little bit. But just to go over the goals that were scored, then we have Pedri in the second half, Ferran Torres 3 minutes after, 52nd minute, and then the match winning own goal in the 91st minute. So I'm just going to get into it piece by piece here. And like I said, another crazy game. A lot to talk about here. So we see first and foremost Garcia between the posts. That's regular at this point. Eric Garcia starts at right back again. Araujo, Cubarsi, Balde, and then in the midfield, Pedri, Mark Casado making his season debut, Rafinha at the 10, which we have not seen before, or at least not under Flick. Rashford, first start for Barcelona in La Liga, on the left wing, Lamine on the right wing, Ferran up top. So a lot of familiar faces, but in different places. A little bit of a weird lineup, an experimental lineup. Wasn't sure how this was going to play out. So, but as usual, as you're going to see with Barcelona in La Liga against teams of, I would say, lesser level. No disrespect, but it is what it is. Domination, complete domination statistically, right? But then you go and you look at expected goals, right? Barcelona had 26 shots and a ton on target, but they were really right at the goal, right at Levante's goalie, who ended up with a ton of saves. 82% possession, 18% possession for Levante, but they had way more expected goals. Like they made the most of their opportunities. When they had an opportunity, they made the most of it. They put it on target, and they ended up with some goals because of it. They actually had more big chances as well. Barcelona was dominating in terms of possession, in terms of controlling the game, but those counterattacks, man, I mean, they were great at just converting, winning the ball and converting it into a counterattack right away. Substitutions we saw a lot in the second half. Danny Olmo came on, Gavi, Christensen, which I had been dying to see Christensen get some minutes. Lewandowski makes his season debut in La Liga, and then Koundé came on in the 85th minute. So I'm gonna go back to some of the goals, but you see that Levante scored early. They had that second penalty, and I got to be honest with this lineup. I'm not mad at it. I was extremely happy, to be honest with you. I was extremely happy to see some of these guys starting. I was very happy to see Marc Casado get some minutes. I really like him. I liked what he did for Barcelona last season. He looked great, especially he's a true defensive midfield player. No questions asked, no doubt about it. Completely different profile from the likes of a Frankie de Jong or a Pedri. Way more defense minded, and that's okay. That's a good thing. It's good to have those players on the team, and there were all types of rumors of him being sold or loaned out. And Flick came out in a press conference before this match and says, "I want Casado to stay." And I really respect the fact that Flick doesn't just say things that he doesn't mean. He comes out, he starts Casado the next game, and gives him an opportunity to show the level that he still has and what he can contribute to the team. And I really think that was huge by Flick. I love that. Um, but I thought he did well. Especially you can tell that he hasn't played in a while. And also his role was looking a little bit different. Um, Messy game. Don't want to make excuses, but the pitch was wet for both sides. But naturally, if you really think about it, think a little bit deeper into it. If the pitch is covered in puddles and it's affecting the way the ball is moving, who's that going to affect more? Maybe it's going to affect the team that has 82% possession, is looking to make more passes and maintain the ball. So again, it impacted both teams, but it was very obvious from the get-go that Barcelona couldn't play their normal brand of football, and they had an issue moving the ball, maintaining possession. The passes weren't moving the way they were supposed to. They were going off target. It was just a messy first half in general. So let me get into some takeaways. So Eric Garcia starts at right back again. I love it personally. I love Eric Garcia as a player. He's a great player. Does just a workhorse player, can do whatever you ask of him. Very versatile. It's a little interesting to me that Kunde is not getting um much more minutes. I'm not surprised because Garcia does a great job filling in, and I think it's being very clear to everyone now that the reason they have Garcia starting at right back is now that since Araujo is the go-to center back pairing with Kubarsi, Garcia is more defense minded. I would say doesn't push forward in the attack as much as Kunde would, and so Flick doesn't want to get exposed in the defense and leave Araujo on an island, so to speak. And I can't really blame him. I got to be honest. The defense is a little worrying. I'll get to that. But Casado and Rashford started. Love that as well. Love to see Rashford start and not only start, but start on the left wing, which is a place where he said personally that he's a little bit more comfortable. He doesn't quite feel like a nine, a striker to play up top. He's comfortable on the left wing, and Flick gave him that opportunity. Um, and then also Rafinha at the 10, which was weird to me. I think Rafinha at the 10, I don't think this is the last time we're going to see it. It's the first time we see it this season. I think we will see it maybe again against teams that will, play more open against Barcelona. A team like Levante or last week, Osasuna, or Mallorca, excuse me. Um, they're going to sit that low block, and there's just not a lot of room for Rafinha to operate against a defense like that. So I don't think that the 10 is a good spot for him. You need somebody like a Fermin Lopez against the low block. It is what it is. He wasn't super effective in the first half. Nobody really was. That's why I got here sloppy first half. Nobody was really effective in the first half. I got to say, the only people that I thought were doing a great job in the first half were Pedri. Balde did great in the first half as well. But there just wasn't much to do. And like I said, the game script was kind of off because of the pitch being weird, in a weird shape, state. And Levante defended well. They were extremely organized. And, they just were ready to counter at a moment's notice. And it gave Barcelona a lot of issues. Then the talk of the game, like I said in my last video for Barcelona, there is no such thing as La Liga week, especially not a Barcelona or Real Madrid match week, without controversy from the referees, and this is no different. So you see here, I got up top here. This shot towards the end of the second half, I thought the whistle would have already been blown by this point, but we're going into the second half. They take a shot and it goes off Balde's arms, which he's trying to turn away from the ball as well. And I think that actually didn't help him. I think that actually made the ball get more contact of his hand in a weird way. But in my opinion, he's got his arm tucked. Referee goes to VAR, calls it a pen. Ends up being Levante's second goal. In my personal opinion, and I don't want to spend too much time on this. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but personally, I don't think it was a penalty. I don't think it should have been a penalty. And this exact same referee, Hernandez, in El Clasico last year, to the last El Clasico of the season in La Liga, infamously did not call a handball on Tchouameni in the box, which in my opinion was a lot more clear. But whatever, it is what it is. Thankfully, it didn't end up costing Barca the game, but it almost did, and it could have, and it's an issue. And it seems to me that the refereeing in La Liga especially is more suspect than a lot of the other leagues, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to move on. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it's just unfortunate that this seems to always be a topic of conversation. Okay. Flick with another halftime masterclass. I mean, this is probably the fifth or sixth time we've seen Barcelona under Flick come back from a 2-0 or more deficit. Remontada Kings, as they're calling them. I mean, I really appreciate the fact that Flick is so good at making in-game adjustments. He's not set on any particular game plan. He's willing to adapt and change based on what is needed from him in the moment. And that is probably, in my opinion, one of his greatest strengths as a manager. And I think that's what sets him apart. He came into this game starting with a little bit of a weird experimental starting lineup. Frankie de Jong could not play. He missed training all week. He had a new child, a birth of a new child. So Casado's in midfield. So then he also puts Rafinha at the 10 to allow Rashford to start, just seeing how things are going to go. And it didn't work. It did not work and that doesn't mean that it won't work in the future, but it didn't work in this match. And Flick goes into halftime and brings on Danny Olmo, brings on Gavi right away. And I mean, the goals came a few minutes after. These subs were made at the start of the half, and then there was two goals at the 49th and the 52nd minute. So within the first 10 minutes of the second half, we're talking about two goals directly, as a result of some of the subs that were made. And, I think Flick deserves all the credit in the world for that. I think he deserves all the credit in the world for that, and he's just a fantastic manager. Everybody knows it, but he just did a great job in this match, staying composed, keeping the team focused in a game that looked like it was going to get out of hand really quickly, and was able to sneak a win out in when all hope looked lost. Ferran, fantastic, man, fantastic. The thing is, when you're watching the game from start to finish, he's going to miss a couple shots, or good chances, I would say. But it seems to me that no matter what, by the end of the day, Ferran will end up in a position where he puts one in or creates a goal or is just, I don't know. He's one of those strikers, man, where, it's not pretty, but he's going to figure it out. And that's exactly what happened today. Scored a very nice goal and was actually somewhat involved in the final goal that Lamine crossed in and ended up being an own goal. I thought originally Ferran headed it in, but like I said, he actually stayed on when Lewandowski came on, and that was good to see. But Ferran, man, shout out to him. He just figures it out. He finds a way, and that's good, man. That's a good quality to have for a striker, just being able to stick to it and keep making runs and be that target for the wingers in the midfield. Okay, defense, very worrisome, very very worrisome to me. I'm not completely sold on Araujo. I don't want to overreact because it's early in the season. You can tell these guys are still adjusting. They're still acclimating to some new teammates, to increase minutes. Like I said, Araujo and Eric Garcia were not everyday starters last season. Cubarsí and Balde, yes. But Araujo and Eric Garcia were not. So you can see that there's still a little bit of a learning curve there, especially for the high line. I mean, Inigo Martinez seemed to pick it up right away with Flick, and Araujo is struggling. I do think he will eventually figure it out, but he was caught out of position a lot. He does make up for it with his speed and his physicality at times, but I do think that the defense is leaving a lot of gaps, and this season in particular, teams are prepared to launch counters on Barcelona, something to try to exploit the high line that seems to be such a big topic of conversation, and it seems like they're learning it and they're adapting. And this week in particular, it was exposed. So hopefully they can figure it out, because when it comes time to play against Real Madrid, when it comes time to play against teams in the Champions League that are really going to punish that, it might not be so easy to come back. But we'll see. At the end of the day, it didn't cost them today, but hopefully they can figure it out. Barca's midfield depth, fantastic. I love it. I love the fact that somebody like Frankie de Jong, who's so important to the side, who is the captain, who is like I said, pivotal in the midfield, can miss the entire game, and Casado can slot in. There's Gavi, there's Dani Olmo, Marc Bernal will be back in a few weeks. Just to name a few guys. I mean, there's so much midfield depth in this team, and it's pretty crazy considering the fact that it seems to me that the attack and defensive depth are like paper thin at the moment. There's like one or two guys on the bench in attack and defense, whereas there's like 4 or 5 different guys that can come off the bench in the midfield and be productive and be a difference maker. So it's a good problem to have, but it's just unfortunate that the team is so midfield heavy, where it's thin in other areas. But I do love the fact that they can rotate in the midfield. So that's always good to see. And then last but not least, RIP, the green kits. For whatever reason, LaLiga was not allowing Barcelona to debut their new kits against Levante because they said it was some sort of jersey clash. I don't really understand how it was a jersey clash, because Levante's home kits are the same as Barcelona's home kits. And so Barcelona was not going to wear their home kits in Levante Stadium. So, whatever. But a lot of people don't like the green kits. Aesthetically, I think they're really nice. I got one on right now in honor of this hopefully final time we see them. Some people think they're cursed. I am starting to feel the same way. but they were really nice kids. And this is most likely the last time we're ever going to see this rendition of them. So RIP to them. And last but not least, I'm going to move on to the player of the match. It could not have been anybody else for this game. Pedri. This was a vintage masterclass from Pedri Gonzalez. He was the MVP, unanimous. I knew he was going to be the MVP, but not the game wasn't even over, and I said, I don't know how somebody can possibly take this man of the match from him. Like I said, in the first half, it was hard to move the ball for Barca. There wasn't a lot of spacing for them. They were struggling, and it seemed to me that Pedri was the only one who was dictating the flow of the game. Still, like he always does, it seems to me that this guy can show up and perform the way that he is able to, no matter what the opposition looks like, no matter what the conditions of the pitch look like, no matter what the defense is giving him. He plays his game, and it's almost unstoppable. He will dictate the flow of the game. I want to go forward. We're going to go forward when I feel like it. I want to slow the game down. We're going to slow down. I want to play a ball over the top. It's all on his terms. He's really pulling the strings for everything that Barcelona does. It's a debate as far as who the best player on Barcelona is. I think it's hard to argue anybody over Pedri, but I do know for 100% fact that he is the most consistent player on FC Barcelona. Some people will say Lamine. Lamine played okay in this game. He had his moments. He had an assist. He created the own goal at the end. It wasn't, in my opinion, start to finish, the best game for Lamine. But Pedri, man, he's fantastic. So good. So good. A leader on the pitch. Offensively, defensively, so solid. Really excels in all three midfield roles, attacking, defensive, and just in the center of the pitch. Great player. Great player. And he was easily man of the match. So, next match. Barcelona on the road once again. Sunday, August 31st against Rayo Vallecano. They seem to always play Barcelona pretty tough. So I'll be very interested to see if there's any lineup changes, if Koundé starts, if Araujo starts, because I'm not going to lie, Christensen looked very good defensively when he came on off the bench. We'll see. We'll see if we go back. De Jong should be back. We'll see what happens with that. But at the end of the day, Barcelona walks away from Levante after an ugly, messy night with the 3 points, and that is all that matters. 6 points, 2-0 in LaLiga. And I will see you next week. Until then, thank you for checking it out. Visa Barça.